Welcome to Coffee and Conversation. I'm your host, Shashank Bengali. We're visiting today with Andre Frois from Singapore Pro Wrestling. We're going to find out more about SPW's place in the larger MMA scene. Andre, Singapore Pro Wrestling, tell us where it fits into the fight scene in Singapore between MMA and boxing. What is the role that you guys play?
It's like, I would call extreme theater, where you have these actors who are performing all these crazy stunts that are very hard to pull off. People just want to come and be amazed, and that's why I also call it like it's honest theater, where in other arts performances you can't exactly say your mind on the spot, but in wrestling, it's the beauty of it. And we kind of carved our own niche in Singapore. If you come and see one of our shows, it's just complete chaos, but everyone goes home feeling completely satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a great piece of entertainment.
While you see many wrestling promotions around the world try and pay huge stars to come in and wrestle for them and market it in that way using the foreign talent, we tried to do it very organically with SPW. So we used very colloquial ideas, very organic Asian gimmicks. We've had all sorts of like local doctor gimmicks, local butcher, we've got local heroes themed on, even Singlish comes into play, Asian languages come into play during our shows. And that's how we wanted to build it. We're very proud because all of my performing wrestlers came from nothing and now they are celebrated by the local community.
Are they performers? And how do they get trained to kind of play these roles?
Most of them were not athletes when they came to us, but they just found their niche, and their passion for wrestling actually inspired them to work on their personal cardio, their personal fitness, their agility, little things like that. And this is where they are now. They're not A-list celebrities, but they're celebrated by many Singaporeans.
Yeah, there's that kind of campy element to it, and everyone kind of knows the fights are scripted, but at the same time, there is a great amount of excitement, and people do go home entertained.
I realized that pretty early on while promoting these events, that it's really important to endear the audience to each fighter, and perhaps that's what martial arts and mixed martial arts could take from pro wrestling sometimes, that you really need to endear your fans to the fighters. They need to have a reason to support the fighter, whether they identify with that person's beliefs, that person's background, that person's style of fighting.
And how do you cultivate a wrestler, a personality, demeanor in the ring, the way they present themselves? What goes into all that? And you as the creative director, is that a big part of your role, as kind of building up these personalities?
It's what we call wrestling psychology, ring psychology. There's so much that goes into making this wrestler not just a good athlete, but someone who understands the pace of every movement, every single body language, gesture, so that not just the story of the match is conveyed and really resonates with the fan, but also every single thing that he does outside the ring and around the storyline that keeps people captivated.
Yeah, and obviously WWE being kind of a precursor for SPW, it's a sport that has gone worldwide, mainly from television, and less so from the live experience. Has that been the same case with SPW, that you've got a live audience, but you're also catering to a big audience watching online at home?
Pre-COVID and during COVID, pro wrestling is very much involves the audience. The audience is very much the third man in the match. If you watch, let's say, UFC now, which does not have audiences, sure, a blood sport fight can go on without the audience, but the reaction and the wrestlers then reacting to those reactions is the backbone of our entire product. At the same time, we've noticed a certain tiredness that's come from the online audience viewer. You see, nowadays you see so many webinars, so many online classes, be it like bartending master classes to learning, to all sorts of YouTube entertainment. It's all online now because we are cooped up in our houses. We have, as SPW, we have been churning out more online content, but not too much. And we don't want to totally become a digital business because fans are already getting very tired looking at the computer screen. I know that our target market really, really wants to come out and have a good time. So let's save up and get ready to put on a good show for that time when it comes instead.
So pre-COVID, can you give us a sense of the breakdown in revenue for SPW between the live events and everything else, the online, the streaming, the merchandise, all that stuff? What's the kind of proportion in each one?
It's mainly gate ticket sales. So when we release stuff on YouTube, it doesn't create any revenue for us. It's just adding value for our loyal fans. Merchandise, t-shirts go for something like $15, $25. So if you look at that kind of ballpark figure, it's just a supplement for the wrestlers. But the main revenue for SPW would be the training center and the live events.
So we've obviously seen, pre-pandemic, there was such an explosion of interest in MMA, and you mentioned Muay Thai earlier and other kinds of types of martial arts. Pro wrestling is kind of the precursor to a lot of that. But has it been influenced by the growth of interest in mixed martial arts too? The types of fights you see, the types of athletes you see coming to the sport?
So it's a bit like real life imitates art, imitates life. At first, when pro fighting became more popular, let's say if we rewind to the 80s, yes, WWF was the most popular thing around. Their gate receipts would of course be more than most county boxing fairs, stuff like that. But as marketing injection came into MMA, and MMA was able to convey its message to more people, people became more knowledgeable of self-defense, of various pugilistic art forms. People were able to force wrestling to become more real, if that makes any sense. Like, lots of stuff we do in the ring is very surreal, but we are forced to make it more real. The only counter that pro wrestling could do for this was to add in a behind-the-scenes element to pro wrestling.